Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larbi.
Welcome back, guys. Happy Friday. I hope everyone is enjoying this amazing weather. I live for summer. I absolutely love it. Today's guest is Jon Schoeller. He is a serial entrepreneur in Charleston, West Virginia, and he has flipped over 110 properties in the last 3 years and also owns a CrossFit gym. He's super successful, and I think we met from Instagram. Virtually, I guess, in today's world. Check him out, the Frugal Investor. He is doing so many great things, and a lot of his deals, like the numbers are pretty impressive. And sometimes I wonder, is the US market an option? And you know what? Maybe it will be in the future. I love Ontario. I love where I'm investing, but he definitely has had some amazing deals, amazing success, 110 properties in the last 3 years. Congrats to Jon Schoeller. Super inspiring, and let's get on with the podcast, and hopefully you guys enjoy it, and feel free to leave a rating and review or send me an email with your comments, sarah@sarahlarbi.com. Jon, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. So I ended up reaching out to you from Instagram because you had this amazing video about how it's not all rainbows and butterflies when it comes to real estate investing, and shit happens. So I wanted to first and foremost, I want to get into the bad or the less attractive side of real estate. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate investing.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Jon Schoeller. My main company is Jon Schoeller Consulting. I've ran businesses since I was 21, and eventually became a consultant for businesses and finances. It's just a passion I had. And I linked up with these two guys when my wife and I moved here to Charleston for her doctorate school. I linked up with these two guys that were already flipping houses. And I knew I wanted to get into real estate too. I reached out to them, said, can I shadow you? Long story short, fast forward 3 years later, we are all now partners. I'm CEO in the company, and we have flipped over 100 and some homes in the last 3 years.
Amazing. That's a huge accomplishment. How do you do that much in such a short amount of time?
Trial and error. So my partners like to work at the speed of light, and I'm more conservative in my approach, and we kind of push and pull on each other. So if it was just them, they probably would be at like number 250. And if it was just me, I might be on like house 10. So that was a happy medium, was 100 for us. Now those don't all come without error, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But it's just building systems, everybody staying in their lane. My one partner finds the houses, he's acquisition, he finds the houses, sees what we're going to list them for and does the marketing. And then my other partner is the contractor, and he knows what we have to put into them. He manages all the contractors, manages the houses. And then I do all the back end of it, all the finances and the money, and make sure we're straight there.
That's awesome. So you're in Charleston, in the US, and obviously there are some differences, right, when it comes to the finances, the taxes, all the legal stuff, and probably some of the house prices as well. But I don't want to assume, like, what's a typical deal that you've done on the market right now?
So let's not confuse my Charleston, West Virginia, with Charleston, South Carolina. One is usually more attractive to people than the other, and that's
true,
okay.
Actually.
Right. So here in Charleston, West Virginia, the marking is cheaper than what most people see. We bought 2 houses last week for $5,000 and $10,000, which most people are like, you can't buy anything. You can't buy a shed for that. But
okay. Hang on. $5,000 and $10,000. Like, is this an actual house, like a brick house?
Yes, it's an actual house. Yes, it's an actual house. It's the location. We have a lot of structural problems. We're in the mountains, so a lot of our houses have foundation. About 80% of the houses we get have something wrong with their foundation, which is a huge expense if you don't know what you're getting into. It could be anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 to fix it. So a lot of these homeowners don't have the cash to fix it, to put it on the market, because the banks won't lend on foundation problems. So then we get it for $5,000.
So then do you sell all of them? Do you keep some of them? What's the strategy?
So we have A&M Investments is our flipping company. Like I said, we flipped over 100 homes there. And then we also have ANC Properties, which is like a rent-to-own company. We have over 100 properties there as well. And then we have an additional company called Second Chance Properties, where we are slowly grabbing these cheap properties, like I just said. We're grabbing them for $5,000. We're going to put in enough work so they're livable and then rent them out. And we call that Second Chance Properties. And I think we just bought our 5th home in that.
All right. So I guess the 1% rule, potentially even the 2% rule, where you're buying a house and the rent is 1% or a 2% rule being 2%. Some of this stuff doesn't really happen often where we live in Canada, right? Because the house prices, I mean, in order to get something that has some cash flow, it's not going to be the 1%. You're probably going 2 hours out of any major city, right? So like 2 hours out of Toronto as an example, or out of Vancouver. So, how does that market look like for you?
So first of all, I think the real estate rules, the 1% rule, the 70% rule, I don't call them rules, I call them guidelines, because it just changes from market to market. If you could just stick to your rule, like if you were to just stick to your 1% rule and you were buying in Toronto, you probably never could buy a house, right? Or you never buy an apartment, because it just doesn't, the numbers don't work out. So you're looking for probably appreciation or something else if you're buying in Toronto, but there's different strategies for every market. I think that those rules, AKA guidelines, are something to help you get started, to let you know at least what you're looking for. But if you're at 0.9% or if you're at 73%, that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy the house. It just means try to stay within these guidelines so that you don't get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, that's really well said, because for me, I'll buy something that's at 0.8%, 0.7%. And I'm like, you know what? It's still good because there is mortgage pay down. I mean, appreciation is icing on the cake. You can't necessarily always rely on that. No. But, and the past is a strong indicator of the future over many, many, many years, not just a random 1 year or two. But, over time, I think just holding, they say it's time in the market, not timing it. But, and our vacancy rate here is like 1%, 1.5%. So we have a different problem than probably you guys out there. So what does that look like in terms of vacancy rates? How easy is it to rent a place where you live and where you're investing?
It's easy to rent a place here, but you have to keep in mind there's pros and cons. When we're buying houses for $5,000, it doesn't mean we're flipping them for Toronto prices and selling them for $1.5 million. If that was the case, we'd be really good.
You do like to. You'd be like, I'm done.
Right. So our market's capped. We can't really. It's really hard for us to sell a house over $200,000 because of the income limits here. But to answer your question, is the rental market is good here, but you have to we had a drug epidemic, really bad drug epidemic. It's on Netflix. I forget what it's called, but meth kind of just, we were called the meth capital of the world 45 minutes from where I'm at. So when you were renting, you have to be very careful. We have a lot of neighborhoods that have just collapsed and bad areas. It's very unfortunate. The opioid crisis also got us. But anyway, so if you're renting, if you're going to buy a $5,000 house and rent it with not putting any money into it, you're going to get a $5,000 renter. And I don't mean to say anything bad about anybody, but it's a matter of fact. If you've been in this game long enough, you understand that if you rent to somebody that's paying $300 a month in rent, they're going to treat your place like a $300 a month in rent place. So you have to be very careful, and you have to do your due diligence of who you're getting in there. So while we can keep our places rented, getting good renters is the problem that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about your state? Is it easy if a tenant stops paying to get them out, or is it very pro-tenant?
We are the least pro-tenant state in the entire United States. With that being said, it's still not like just go up and say get out, but we just have the least amount of time to wait and least loopholes. I believe I looked that up just like maybe 6 months ago, that we were the most landlord-friendly state in the United States.
Very cool. So give me an example of what that looks like. So somebody stops paying. Do you have an idea of what that process timeline looks like?
It's about 30 to 45 days still. I don't know if that's the most friendly landlord state. I'd hate to see how long it takes the least friendly. I've heard California could take years, but we basically, if they're not paying, we have to serve them. So we have to get like a PI to go serve them. We're not allowed to serve them ourselves. They get served and they have 2 weeks to respond. If they don't respond, then we get to the magistrate, and then the sheriff gives them an order to get out. But with that being said, if our system moved quickly, we might be able to get people out in 2 to 3 weeks. But the magistrate and the sheriff and getting all this stuff is what takes the longest.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for Ontario, for example, there's actually a lack of adjudicators. And so it's delaying the process, without even getting a court. Like you might have a court date
many, many, many weeks later because of the fact that there's just not enough of them. And then, you know, it's that ongoing issue and that ongoing problem. So screening your tenants, guys, is super important, especially in pro tenant spaces. And just out of curiosity though, and you know, where you live, if you wanted to, you know, if you're buying something and there's already a tenant in there and you took it over, let's just say they were still in there, how easy is it to get them out if you want to renovate or move in, or like, what does that look like?
So a lot of times, you know, there's all types of tricks you can do. We buy a lot of houses at auction. So there is oftentimes people still living in our houses. So the first thing we do is go and knock. The first thing you want to do is try to be personable. This is my experience. Be personable. Judge the house. If you knock and they're getting really angry, just, you might have to go through the system. But go be personable. Yes, they're losing. Remember, they're losing their house. Whether their fault or not, they are losing their home. Just try to be respectful. Knock on the door. Say, hey, look, somebody was going to buy this house anyway at auction. We had no idea you were living here. We try to buy these empty, but we buy them at auction, then we find out you're living here. First thing we do is offer cash for keys. Depending, if they start saying, look, I'm leaving in a week, just give me a week, then we'll be like, okay, fine, we'll back off. But the next step, they'll be like, well, look, I need some time. Be like, okay, how much time? Establish some barriers. Be like, okay, what if I give you 20 days, but I give you $1,000 to get out? Start low, but that's about average. And that pays for their moving expenses and all that. You might even have to set up the movers for them. These are all the things that get them moving faster. Remember, the court system and all that is going to cost you time and money too. So that if you bought right, your margin should be there to be able to pay them to get out quickly. Because we're using investors' money. The faster we go, the higher their return, the more money they keep with us. I'm one of our investors as well. So I like when that house is empty and we're starting the rehab as soon as possible. So that's what cash for keys is one. Just be polite, give them time, set up movers. Those are all different strategies you can use. And then lastly, you got to go through the court system if they're just not going to play ball. And they will lie to you. They will lie to you over and over again.
Right. Okay. No, so some great tips for sure. So, I mean, obviously you're doing a lot of business, and you mentioned investors. Are these joint venture partners, or are these strictly like money lenders and they're lending their money at whatever higher percentage, and then you're using that? How does that work?
So I guess I would be a joint venture partner in my own company because I'm actually hands-on and get into these houses, and I've managed a few of them. But most of our money is hands-off. We have our money come in. We separate it because we're not a fund. So we have to keep our investors' money separate per house. So if you're going to fund a house with us, you have to fund the entire house, the purchase and the rehab. So we have some investors that have 15 and 20 houses with us at a time, and some that are just using their retirement funds to buy one house with us and do it that way. And so the money comes in, we give them an ROI. We used to do a 1/3 profit share, and now we're a percentage basis because it just works out simpler for everybody. They guaranteed get paid, and we know exactly what we're paying each month. So we'll offer anywhere between 8 and 12%, depending on how much money you give us and the length of time you keep your money with us.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. So the reason I originally contacted you is because you had a great video on Instagram, and you were talking about the darker side of real estate investing. And obviously with the amount of flips and properties that you bought and sold, or bought, acquired, et cetera, you probably have your fair share of nightmares. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I do get a lot of requests saying, you know, can we hear some of the cons of real estate investing, and like, what are the things that can happen? And, you know, for me, like, I don't have that many horrible stories. Things happen. I guess it's a mindset thing and how you look at it. You know, like, of course there's going to be plumbing issues. There's going to be furnace issues, like all that stuff. Expect it. It does happen. But what is, like, for example, like one of your stories that you're like, oh crap, if I was like brand new, that would suck.
So just like what's happening to us right now, this month has been very bad for us in terms of getting our houses closed. In fact, since I've made that video, yesterday, it was yesterday, we were at the closing table. It was yesterday or the day before. Today's Sunday, so it was Friday. We were at the closing table with one of the houses we've waited a month and a half to close. Now, I don't know what y'all's closings are like. Ours are typically 30 days, so a month and a half isn't terrible, but we were told at around the 1 month mark, we were ready to close that week, and it got drug out like another 2.5 weeks. So we finally got to the closing table. We're getting ready to get paid. Lending error. Like, literally, we were signing the paperwork at the table. Our supposed to be a rule here where the buyers have to be separated and sellers have to be separated in the room until the paperwork's done, and then they bring us together. their realtor came over to our table, and we were like, they came over to our room and knocked, and we were like, no way, this is going to be bad news. And he said, lending error, this is falling apart. She has to go with another lender. So now we're another month out. But we've had 4 houses like that, and just by chance, 3 of them are the ones I'm invested on personally. And it's just where like 2.5 months out from getting our money. Now, here's the problem with that. If you're just starting out and you counted on your money coming to you in a month, and you don't have any cash flow anywhere else, any other type of alternate income, you don't have any savings, and you're like, look, I'm good. I'll pay all my bills when I close this house next week. Well, what happens when that house doesn't close? What happens when the buyer backs out or there's a lending error, and now you got another month of bills and overhead and expenses till you get that check? So this is why I tell people to be careful with the flipping houses only. I'm not saying don't do it, but understand your money is never guaranteed. You can finish that project on time and under budget all you want. That does not mean it sells the next day. That does not mean that you're going to get exactly what you thought asking price. There's going to be repairs involved and all that. So be careful with your projections. Be very careful about your strategizing your money so that when these houses close, that you're not just counting on that to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things can happen all the time. The more, the more volume that you do, the more stuff will happen. So that was a good example. Any other examples you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is like, if you're going to flip 100 homes, be prepared to bring money to the table. Being an investor now, I thought that like, if I was going to invest with somebody, if you rewind 3-4 years ago, if I was going to invest with somebody, I'd like to find somebody who's like, I flipped 500 homes and we make $50,000 every time without fail. If I heard that now, I'm running. Like if you told me that you flipped any more than, let's say, 20 properties and you haven't lost, I know you're lying. Like I pretty much know you're lying. Like if you haven't at least just broke even on a home, because you can't do this for so long and never have a failure. Like you're never going to just not have a failure for doing so many numbers. If you're doing 100 homes, we've probably lost on, I don't know, 5 to 8 of them. So, we call it an 8 to 10% loss rate, which is not bad, but the amount of money you have to bring sometimes, and it's just going to happen in this game. You're just not going to always get it right. A tenant sitting in a house for 6 months, like after you bought the auction house, if you have hard money and you're paying 12% on a tenant sitting in a house for 6 months, there goes your margins.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot easier to, go over budget, to go over time, to underestimate, what it's going to cost you. And sometimes the ARV can be totally, this is why I love the burst strategy. So I'm not ever going to do 100 flips. I don't think that's for me. But everybody's got their strategy that works for them. So for me, what I like is the burst strategy, because I'm like, you know what, even if I am a little over budget or I'm a little bit over time, at the end of the day, it's time in the market, right? The appreciation, the mortgage pay down, the cash flow, all that stuff makes it okay. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer than others, but with flipping, and especially so many, you don't have a whole lot of room for margins. And especially I'm thinking at your price point where you're looking at $5,000, $10,000 properties. I mean, if you've got that low property, your margins might be a little bit lower than if you were to buy a $300,000 or $400,000 property.
That's exactly right. So we don't see the margins. Like when we do a flip, we don't see $100,000 paycheck. So we have to do the numbers. But we do have some good ones. I closed one this week. That was my personal investment. I'm putting a video out on YouTube today on it. But we had about $49,000 into it. And $59,000 into it. And we made $39,000 profit. So that's right there. I mean, that's like 80, 90% cash on cash, something like that. So we do see, typically big profit margins for what we bought it for, but still somebody in like California, they can't do a $50,000 flip. Their margins have to be much, much bigger because they might have to drop the price of their property $50,000 before they sell it. So we're only doing price drops of like $2,000 and $3,000. So there's pros and cons to every market. Another thing that's a pro to us is we don't have the competition. I'm not saying we don't have any, but we don't have Toronto competition. So it's pros and cons. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. I was talking to some of my realtors and in the past, I don't know, month, it's just been crazy. They're like, the spring market is already here. There's the lowest that they've seen is 3 multiple offers. The highest, in the past, little while that people are putting offers in 7, 8, 9. It feels like 2017 again for us. That's when, the banks decided to make some changes and things slowed down a little bit. But you gotta, there's always risk, especially when you're flipping, right? Market downturns. Like, what are some of the risks that you would say for newbies, but also experienced investors to keep in mind as markets change, but especially when they're flipping property?
Oh yeah, if you're halfway through a flip in 2008, USA 2008 happens, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. You're gonna have to hold it. So I love the BRRRR strategy. Don't get me wrong. That's a personal favorite of mine. I'm doing it right now with a personal fourplex that my wife and I just bought. But you have to be prepared for that. And so, like, in our market, we don't feel over leveraged, because when we see a hit, our depreciation in our market, let's say there's a huge market drop, we're going to see our $100,000 houses go down to like 92 to 90. So if we were planning to make $20,000 on that property, we're going to make 10 now, right? If that were to happen. But if you're in California, if you're in Toronto and you see the market drop, $1 million home can go down to 750, right? And if that was your margin on the flip, now what are you going to do? So you either have to sell it and lose money or break even, or you have to rent it, and good luck explaining that to your investor who thought they were just going to be in it for about 6 months to a year. So you have to be prepared for all this stuff. So that's another pro of this market, is we don't see the huge appreciation. Like, you buy a house today for $100,000 here, it's going to be worth 110 in 5 years, right? 3 to 5 years might be worth 110, 120, depending on the area. Or Toronto, you buy something for 100,000, which is a joke, but if you were to, it might be worth 150, 170 in 5 years. Y'all saw this. But the same goes true for the opposite. If it drops, you're going to see the same amount of drop. So we don't have the huge swings. So we're fortunate in that with our flips. We still have to buy right in case it happens. But if you're buying in a hot market, Houston, Atlanta, Toronto, places like that, you have to be prepared if the market swings during your rehab process.
Yeah, absolutely. If the market swings, but also if the rules change when it comes to lending, right? So, the market could stabilize, but like, example of what happened in 2017 is the market was so hot, the government decided to cool it down by adding these rules and regulations, cooled down the market, which, I guess there's pros and cons to look at all of that stuff. But somebody mid-flip, all of a sudden people get scared. They're not too sure. They can't afford, what they wanted to afford originally because the criteria to qualify has changed. Well, you might be left doing something different with that property. And that's the part sometimes that scares me with these big flips that are very expensive, because when I'm doing something like a BRRRR as an example, but if I were to flip something where I could rent and my rents would still cover, my expenses, and there would be a need for that in that market, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. So like for me in Toronto, this is just my opinion, I wouldn't flip Toronto because I could not, if it was a single family or something along those lines, I could not put a renter in there that's going to cover everything, and I would be cash flow negative. So again, great way to look at the market and just to weigh your pros and cons, and have more than one exit strategy, right? So when you're doing something, if your only exit is to sell, please think again, because this is where we will get caught, unfortunately, and then lose a lot of money.
That's definitely a downside of flipping, because most flips only do have that. They're going in it with only one exit strategy, especially if they're borrowing money. So we're fortunate, and all of our money's private money. Investors like myself put our money in, so we don't have hard money. So we have to go, like, say it was me and it was like the market went sideways for a minute, I would be under the understanding like we got to rent this for a little while. We got to rent it. But that's also, if you're buying a flip, it's very, very intelligent, like you were just saying, to have another exit strategy. Say, if something goes south, do the numbers work out that I could rent this and at least cash flow 150, 200 bucks to carry this until the market corrects? Can I at least do that? If you're on hard money, most likely not. Most likely that's not going to happen. So you have to be very careful of that, or figure out a way to refinance that hard money out to bring in a long-term investor. But that's often not an option for most. So in 2008, I was young then. I was just 3 years out of high school. So I didn't really know what was going on. I knew the economy was going down. I just started my first business, but I didn't have money in the market. I didn't have real estate, so I didn't really understand it. Now knowing what, I bet like so many people had to lose their butts, because think about being over leveraged on about 6 flips with hard money in 2008, 2009 happens. I bet that's it. They just had to throw their hands up. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So It's so interesting, and you're talking about money. So let's just say for Canadian thinking, maybe I should invest in the US. And let's not talk about taxes, because I would say talk to your accountant, because there are going to be tax implications. But let's just say somebody wanted to invest with you guys. What's the process?
So basically, you reach out to us. I'm not allowed to advertise for it yet, so you have to reach out to us and let us know that you're interested. Now, I can market to accredited investors. But that's typically not who we work with. So just say our typical investor. You can go with me, someone who has some cash sitting around, or a lot of people have money in their retirement accounts and they can self-direct it. Either one, either got cash or self-directed, or maybe you have access to a family member's money. So then you contact us and we sit down and figure out the parameters. Like, how many houses do you want to do? Do you want to start with one, or are you ready to deploy $500,000? Like, where are you at on that? Then we work out a percentage basis. Somewhere between 8 and 12%. Most people fall between 9.5 and 10.5, right in the middle. And that's how much money you give us and for how long. So if you want to do a big flip, so one that's going to take 6 to 8 months, we'll pay you a little bit more on that money. Now, if you just want to do what we call basically a gap fund on a wholesale, basically we need this money right now to purchase this $30,000 house at auction. We're going to put it right back on the market for 50, right? And let another investor buy it. And so you're looking at a month and a half turnaround. So it's still excellent returns on your money, depending on what you have access to. Someone like you, someone that's active in the business, you're looking for much higher percentage returns, but you're having to work for it. You're having to find the deals and do all that. If you're just handing somebody your money and making 8 to 12%, that's typically a good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, just because our registered funds are different, I actually don't think, and again, I'm not an accountant, so please check with your accountant. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a mortgage broker, I'm not into those things, but I actually don't think, from my understanding, that you can transfer over RSPs or tax-free savings accounts, because it's not like we have a 401k or any of that stuff. So it's quite different. So I don't think we can actually transfer registered funds out of Canada. That's my understanding. So it would have to be cash.
And so something I wouldn't know either.
So I'm going to go ahead and say that is, from my understanding, that is not something you can do. So you'll need the cash to do that. But you could even do that in Canada too. There's lots of people that will take money that will pay, through your RSP or your tax-free savings account. And it would be essentially as a second mortgage on a property. And essentially they will, you'll get, I don't know, anywhere between 8, 12, 15, essentially you would work with that lender on what makes sense. So it sounds similar, I guess, with what you're doing. I just don't think that they can cross borders if it's registered funds, but.
That's good to know. I had no idea. Yeah, ours is called self-direct. Basically, it's called just self-directed IRA or Roth or solo 401k.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of them, but some of ours have checkbook control. So I'm signed up for, it's called a solo 401k here, and I do the Roth version of that. And so I don't know what that translates to you guys.
Yeah, so essentially there's two trust companies that will do it in Canada. So it's Community Trust and Olympia Trust. And there's a third one that's more, I think, out west. But it's similar, it's just different.
So you get actual checkbook control of your own retirement funds.
You can loan it out on real estates, but there are going to be rules and regulations around it.
Okay, so our solo 401k gives, I'm actually the trust of my own retirement account. I get a checkbook to it, and I can do whatever I want with it. I can invest. Well, there's some rules. I can't invest it in myself or a close family. I can't invest it in my own businesses. There's no self-dealing, basically. But outside of that, it's on my discretion of how I want to lend it out and build that account. As long as the money comes out of there, it goes right back in there. I can never touch it until.
Yes. That's interesting. Now, are you guys able to loan out to family? Because that is one of the things that we cannot do. So it has to be arm's length, meaning not blood or marriage related.
Yes, I think that's similar. And I don't know. I think that if it was a cousin or something, then maybe, but definitely not my wife. I know that's for a fact. No wife. I don't think her parents or anything like that. But a brother-in-law, something like that, I think you're allowed to invest with them. Again, nobody quote us on anything we're saying here. Neither one of us are accountants, but I'm pretty sure that I can do that, an extended family member.
Yeah. And you know what, actually the rules and regulations, if you go to Community Trust or Olympia Trust, for Canadians anyways, thinking about this, they'll actually list them out, what can be done with them and what cannot be done with them, and who you can loan it out to and who you can receive it from. Because you also can't say if I have an RSP and then you have an RSP, let's switch them out. You're going to get actually red flagged by CRA. So, you work through your accountant on how to do it, but just follow the rules. There's definitely more than just buying mutual funds and putting your money into the stock market. You can use it in real estate, but there are many rules and regulations. So just make sure that you guys are aware of it. Awesome. Okay. So, Jon, the next part of the podcast is our lightning round. So I'm going to ask you a series of 5 questions. You're going to give me the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Question number 1, what is your favorite real estate investing book ever?
Probably Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Although it's not exactly a real estate book, it definitely sets the mindset of how you should be looking at life and not just life, but your finances for sure.
Okay. All right. Great book. Number 2, what is your favorite podcast?
Yours.
You listen to it really, really? Okay,
no, I would have to say my favorite podcast is definitely Bigger Pockets. Like that's the one that really got me understanding a lot of this stuff.
Awesome. Question number 3, what do you do for fun when you are not doing anything related to real estate? What's your favorite pastime?
Weight training. I do a lot of, I actually own a gym as well. And so I'd have to say weight training is like my pastime, passion.
Very nice. Do you guys have Orange Theory Fitness where you are?
That's funny. Yes, they're a direct competitor to me.
That's where I go.
That's okay. That's okay. They do really good. They have outstanding marketing, and they seem to offer good customer service. So kudos to them. But yes, they opened up here about a year ago, about a year after I opened my gym, and it is the hot new thing right now. So we felt that a little bit. But that's okay.
Yeah. You know what? If you had a gym there like near me, I'd probably go to yours. But
okay, thanks.
All right. Number 4, if you lost all your money and your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
Reestablishing connections like as quickly as possible. Like I would just get right back with the same people that I had built this with and around the same people. I know this is a lightning round, but real quick, that's probably the most important thing to do is get around the right people, especially if you're not someone that can just go do all this by themselves, which I don't think anybody can, but get back around the same people where you saw that shift. Like if you started being successful at some point in your life, get around those people again as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. That saying, right? Your network is your net worth.
Right.
Is definitely true. Awesome. Last question. If somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, how would you recommend they spend it?
Assuming all their bad debts are paid, and assuming they have an emergency fund set aside, I would do a joint venture or an investment with somebody. If you're not someone that knows all the lingo and knows how to look for properties and all that, I would find a company like ours, not making a pitch, but find an investment company that will allow you to like kind of look through the glass. And what I mean by that is you don't just hand them their money and they hand money back. If you really want to do this, hand them your money and say, hey, for a decreased percentage or for almost no, can I just hand you my money and you give it back, but I want to follow you around. I want to shadow you. I want to see exactly how the behind the scenes work of this. And if they do that, if they won't do that, then move on to the next one. Somebody will, especially if you're going to hand them about 50 grand interest free. But keep in mind, while you don't make any money there, you're learning. So you're paying for an education. So if you get that 50 grand back in 6 months and you learned how to find a deal, that's worth it. I think you would agree to that.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, cool. So, Jon, where can listeners find you if they wanted to reach out and know more?
So there's multiple places you can find me. You can find me on Instagram at the Frugal Investor. I'm really active on there. I'm also active on my account, Jon Schoeller. You can find me on all my accounts at Jon Schoeller on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Instagram is the most active, and then YouTube, I try to do 1 video a week on behind the scenes of house flipping, investing, and strategizing your money.
Very cool. Any final last words of advice?
Read 3 books. After 3 books, put it to work. You got to get to action, because that's the other thing. I got hung up on this. Read, research, watch podcasts. That's not going to make you any money. It's going to give you the tools to make money. It's not going to make you any money. So right now, if you're watching this, get on meetup.com. I don't know what it is in Canada if you guys have that.
Yep, we have Meetup.
Perfect. Get on meetup.com, search real estate investor meetings in my area, real estate meetings in my area, and go to at least 3 to 5 meetings over the next month. Go to all of them, sit there, don't say a word, shake hands, introduce yourself, but just take it all in. And then after you're about your second or third meeting, start introducing yourself and say, hey, I want to get started in this. Can I take you guys out to lunch? That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great advice. And actually, a lot of the listeners probably know this, but I'm a co-founder of probably one of the largest clubs in Ontario, and the Right Club. So if you have not attended yet and you want to attend, feel free to come out. We have about 250 to 300 people that come out every single month, and it's pure real estate education. We switch the topics around so that people can learn a little bit about everything. But Jon, you mentioned it. You learn and you read and you learn and you read. network, but take action. Don't have that analysis paralysis, right? So at some point you got to pull the trigger.
Right.
Awesome. Jon, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it, and all your insights. And guys, check out his Instagram, his YouTube, and this guy is doing awesome things and willing to share. So thank you for all your insights.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larbi. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?